And I'll explain a little bit of that. I'm sure that almost all of you have heard of Rachel Carson, but maybe you don't know all the facts about her life and how she got started in what she did. So she was born in 1907, and she grew up on a Pennsylvania farm. She got a master's degree in zoology at Johns Hopkins University. And then when her father died, she had to support her family. And so she became the second woman to ever work in the US Bureau of Fisheries. There, she wrote radio scripts about sea creatures. She did a popular series for radio called Romance Under the Water. She started doing her own personal writing about wildlife. She wrote a book in 1951 that was called The Sea Around Us, and it won the National Book Award. It became a sensation, and it is still considered one of the best books ever written about nature. In the 1950s, DDT was being used everywhere, from bug spray to all crops, from bug spray at picnics, everywhere. It was the first lab-made insecticide. It was credited with curing malaria and typhus in World War II. DDT was viewed as a panacea, something that fell under the umbrella of, as the DuPont company famously put it, things for better living through chemistry. And I have a slide and a video to show. Things for better living. I can't hear that. I wasn't able to hear that. Were other people able to hear it? No, we were not able to hear that. I'm sorry.
We'll keep working on that throughout the presentation, and maybe we can come back to that.
I have one more video to show. I'm sorry you were not able to hear the cute little song there. Anyway, almost.
Here we go. Here we go.
Oh, okay. Great. So there you have it. So almost immediately, DDT was hailed as a means of stamping out insect-borne disease and winning the farmers' war against insect-borne disease and winning the farmers' war against crop destroyers overnight. But then she received, let me see here. Okay, then she received a letter from a friend who said that a plane spraying DDT killed all of the songbirds in her sanctuary. This was the inspiration for Carson to write her most famous book, Silent Spring, and it was a 4-year project for her. What she did is she went around the country gathering examples of environmental damage that was attributed to DDT. And she did this for 4 years. It was first serialized in the New Yorker before being published as a book in 1962. Her research found that DDT was poisoning livestock and killing them. It was killing fish, fatally weakening birds' eggs, and destroying the ecosystem. She pointed to 27 species of dead fish in the Colorado River. It caused a greenhouse worker to become paralyzed. She wrote the book while she herself was battling cancer. After the book was published, she was slandered by the chemical companies, as you can imagine. They launched a $250,000 campaign against her. She was called hysterical. She was labeled a lesbian and a spinster, and she was accused of letting harmless insects terrify her. But people did listen to her. She spoke before the US Senate, and they listened. To get a more recent view of how DuPont and other chemical companies are still poisoning the ecosystem, I would recommend seeing the film that was recently out called Dark Waters. It's chilling, and it's also about DuPont. It's available to watch on Amazon Prime, and I'd highly recommend it. The truth about DDT became public knowledge through her work. She died in 1964 of breast cancer, 2 years after Silent Spring was published. In 1970, 3 things occurred because of her work. 1, the National Environmental Policy Act was passed, and you see the slide for that. That was in 1970, and it promoted efforts which will prevent or eliminate damage to the environment and biosphere and stimulate the health and welfare of man. It was called the most important piece of environmental legislation in our history. It still is very important. Then there was the first Earth Day in April, which we now celebrate every year on April 22nd. When it was first passed, it was once a decade. So they had it in 1970, then they had it in 1980. But after that, now we have it every single year, and everybody tries to do something for the environment on that day. And finally, her work was responsible for the creation of the United States Environmental Protection Agency. And I have a slide for that. Yes, thank you. Her legacy is actually the foundation of modern environmentalism and ecology. So as far as her personal life, she never married. She had a long relationship with a woman named Dorothy Freeman, whom she met in the summer of 1953 in Maine. Their relationship was conducted mainly through letters and during the summers that they spent together in Maine every summer. Over the course of 12 years, they would write 900 letters to each other. They would share summers for the remainder of Carson's life and meet whenever else their schedules permitted. Freeman was married, and it's unclear if their relationship was romantic or not, although many of their letters did profess a love for each other. Shortly before Carson's death, they both destroyed hundreds of their letters that they had written to each other. And their surviving correspondence was published in 1995 in a book called Always Rachel, The Letters of Rachel Carson and Dorothy Freeman, 1952 to 1964, an intimate portrait of a remarkable friendship. And this was written by Freeman's granddaughter. So that's an interesting book. But now I do have a short video of her life and contributions, which I hope we'll be able to show.
DDT was used throughout the United States until it was banned in 1972. Although it hasn't been used in this country in more than 4 decades, new research shows that exposure, even from a long time ago, could be a contributing factor in the development of breast cancer.
Rachel Carson, a voice for the environment, a voice for the people, a voice for our world. A woman, without a PhD or any institutional presence, took a stand against the horrors of the chemical industry and its effects on nature and humankind. Pesticides and chemicals were beginning to become abundant in use after World War II. This was the age of miracle science and technological progress, resulting in America's faith that these new chemicals were in the best interests of the country. DDT, a pesticide, was introduced in the 1940s as a way to protect deployed soldiers from insect-borne diseases during World War II. In the 50s, its use shifted towards agricultural purposes and was utilized by many farmers. The U.S. Department of Agriculture and corporations promoted DDT to increase domestic productivity. It was used from large-scale aerial sprays to insecticidal wallpaper.
So DDT was initially designed to paralyze insects. So what it's designed to do is it basically opens a channel in the insect cells, causes that channel to be open longer, and causes the insect to become paralyzed. It was never intended to act as an estrogen, which is what caused it to be harmful.
Pesticides were not tested before being released to the public, and their effects on the environment were unforeseen and unknown. Americans wanted quick, cheap fixes to problems, and did not think about future impacts.
In shorthand, I could see where, of course, this is better. And that's, I think, why farmers started using it in the first place, because there was this magical thing that you could apply, and it would get rid of your problems without the research to back up what's going to happen.
DDT quickly infiltrated the ecosystem. DDT is extremely persistent, as it cannot be broken down easily and is insoluble by water. DDT is fat-soluble, accumulating in the fatty tissues of organisms. This process leads to biomagnification of the pesticide, which is when animals higher up on the food chain accumulate large concentrations of DDT from consuming smaller animals that contain the DDT. Evidence of this can be seen in severe declines of bald eagle populations. As they ate large quantities of fish that contained DDT, they accumulated the chemical into their systems. Their eggshells became weakened due to this pesticide, and reproductive failures of the embryos occurred. Carson was a biologist at the U.S. Bureau of Fisheries and later the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. She wrote multiple books on ecology and human effects on the environment before publishing her most famous and influential book, Silent Spring, which educated people about the effects of DDT and other pesticides.
Carson's biggest inspiration to write the book occurred when her friend wrote her a letter about how she saw a plane flying over her house, spraying DDT on the neighboring land. The next day, she witnessed that nearly all of the organisms in the estuary nearby had died or had had their nervous systems destroyed. Carson decided she needed to take a stand. Silent Spring exposed the chemical industry's careless use of DDT and other pesticides. However, she faced a lot of backlash from fellow scientists because they believed that DDT was beneficial to society and not harmful as she so claimed. Her book was also ridiculed and refuted by many chemical and agricultural organizations. She was threatened with a libel suit from a chemical corporation, and the National Agricultural Chemical Association embarked on a long campaign of misinformation to discredit Silent Spring. Even a former Secretary of Agriculture stated that Rachel Carson was probably a communist, but still, she stood by her book.
when someone speaks out against what's being accepted like that, and calls to attention an issue that needs to be addressed, and people start reading it, it's kind of like a snowball. It's just starting to roll and snowball down the hill. Pick it up, where that's when you have to break off of the organic movement and decide that I don't want to kill all these things anymore. I want to promote a healthy ecosystem. And so when you get the public on board in that way, it definitely affects public policy.
She began to get national recognition and was interviewed on CBS Reports, increasing her supporters and spreading her research. The government was growing increasingly receptive to her ideas. President Kennedy, a loyal advocate for silent spraying, established a presidential committee to investigate pesticides. Carson testified to the Senate on several occasions to ban DDT as well as similar pesticides in her book. She argued that the Bill of Rights should guarantee all citizens the security of protection from dangerous poisons distributed by private or public officials. Unfortunately, Rachel Carson did not live to see the end result of her life's work, as she died of breast cancer in 1964. Rachel Carson and Silent Spring had sparked a fire of environmental awareness in the public's minds, and the modern-day environmental movement had begun. Many environmental organizations, such as the Sierra Club, and organizations founded in memory of her, such as the Rachel Carson Council, kept her legacy going and got her dreams accomplished in 1972, as their years of lobbying finally got the legislation passed to ban DDT.
Sadly, the effects of DDT can still be seen today. Numerous studies have shown that DDT is still present in organisms all along the food chain, as it is passed on through generations.
The big problem with DDT is that it's highly persistent. So we've been doing some studies with blue crabs on the coast of North and South Carolina. Just out of curiosity, we sampled some adult female blue crabs that were gravid and dissected out the eggs and then sent those off to a chemist to see what was in them. Every single sample came back with either DDT or one of its breakdown products in it. So DDT has been banned for over 30 years, and it's still showing up in the fat tissues of aquatic organisms.
DDT also has tragic effects on humans. There is strong evidence from the World Health Organization suggesting that DDT, an endocrine disruptor, may be linked to lymphoma, breast cancer, testicular cancer, liver cancer, male infertility, miscarriages, and nervous system and liver damage. Rachel Carson stood firm in her beliefs and supported her research despite much opposition until she passed away in 1964. Rachel Carson lives on as a scientific icon who took a stand for what she knew was right. Her accomplishments will never be forgotten. Rachel Carson's impact is still far-reaching even today because people followed in her footsteps to make change. How will you contribute?
The biggest thing is the consumer has the final say. So if you choose to purchase something organic, you're voting with your dollar. You're voting to say, I support this instead of that, and that ultimately makes the deal.
Okay, thank you. Now, I remember in my neighborhood being sprayed with DDT. I don't know if any of you have similar experiences, but I would like to hear your thoughts now on Rachel Carson, if you had any experiences on DDT, which is banned now, although there still are pesticides being used that are unhealthy for us and our whole ecosystem. So I'd like to hear from you.
I remember seeing those sprayers in yard sales.
Oh. And I remember them spraying crops where I lived in northern Wisconsin. You know, the planes would fly over, dusting the crops. So yes, we remember those ages. And you're right, things like that are still going on today.
I'm not sure it was DDT, but they used to spray in our neighborhoods, trucks going through there. And we used to stupidly ride our bikes behind them.
Sounds like you're from outer space.
Could be.
Could be.
Yeah, I currently have 6 heads as a result of that writing.
Well, that film Dark Waters showed how just water is being poisoned by chemicals and people are dying, getting cancer. So things don't change that much. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody else?
Well, they have that spray they banned for yards. What was it called? I still have a bunch of it.
Roundup?
Oh, yeah, the Roundup.
Oh.
Roundup. Yeah, that causes cancer, and people have been using it. And, you know, think of the farm workers who work in the fields, and they were constantly being sprayed and getting cancer. And I don't know if that still happens. I imagine it probably does. Yeah.
I remember seeing those planes fly over when we used to go down to Florida. They'd spray in South Georgia.
Right. Right in the neighborhoods.
They're still spraying for mosquitoes. No telling what's in it.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in knowing if you learned some new information about Rachel Carson.
I did.
Good, that was my
And
goal.
I also saw that and PBS had a film on Rachel Carson, you know, like The Silent Spring. So I remember seeing that too, and remembering. I forgot that she had such a short lifespan because she could have done a lot more.
Yeah, I forgot that she didn't live long. You know,
Yeah.
64.
Wonder if that's still on TV.
I have the DVD because I got it from PBS of Silent Spring.
I'll look and see if it's on.
And I read the book. And
I read the book too.
Springs. Silent Spring.
Amazing woman.
You know, one of the important things, excuse me, one of the important things I think is the difference one person can make. It was her commitment to an issue and the courage to continue to fight and stand up and have her voice heard. And look, she changed our country and really influenced the entire world and certainly the planet. So the voice of one person can make a difference.
That's right. She didn't back down, and that was important.
Right.
No, she didn't. And we like that.
That's right.
It's called The Silent Spring, SPRING.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not seeing it on TV right now.
It's from PBS. It was not.
PBS, The Silent
Maybe it's on
Spring.
Passport.
Well,
PBS Passport.
Victoria, we could probably show it if she has the DVD. There might be a way of doing it. People who are interested.
I love that idea. And Sandy, if you want to bring that sometime, that's a great movie that we can go some afternoon, because we know we'll be back. And we're going to create all these wonderful opportunities. And I'm going to invite Jill to come do her series on women in science anyway.
Yay.
So yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And I hope we can improve on the sound. You know, we're still learning all of this, but we're getting there. But I appreciated being here and seeing all of you and having a place to go myself. That was
Yes.
All these
We're
people,
thrilled to have you.
all these people who are so restless, who don't want to stay home, we need to send this stuff out to everybody.
Yeah.
Can we share it, Victoria?
Oh.
What, Barbara?
Can we share our classes with other people from other places?
No, and I'm going to tell you why. We cannot do that.
Okay.
And there's legal reasons we cannot do that. Remember, we have an intellectual property issue, and other senior living facilities are for profit, and they're not willing to make any contributions to support these programs. So the funding is coming out of DeKalb County and for our membership.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
How about Victoria, if people want to join now, is there a way they can join?
Absolutely. All they have to do is email me. I share the information with Marion and Valerie, and they can pay when the doors are open, but they're welcome to join now.
Okay,
that's good news. Yeah.
All right, now I'm going to take a cooking class I signed up for. They're having a cooking class on TV.
Go for it, Barbara. Fix us all something delicious.
Oh, by the way, Eureka has 3 cases now.
Okay, that's where she has some business. Okay, all right, Jill. So what else? We'll see you again soon, I'm sure, because we're not going to give up.
Yeah, this is wonderful. I love these programs.
I could stay home forever.
It's okay.
Yeah,
We'll do
so
another one.
Dean,
Well, I have a whole list of women scientists that I would love to go over with you.
That would be wonderful.
They have not had their just due, and they contributed a
True.
lot.
Great.
Dean and Penny asked, has there been any studies about the recent changes in the EPA?
Oh,
Do we know?
we
I
don't know.
know the answer to that. I don't know
I
what's
think they're
happening.
trying to roll back everything now.
Yeah.
They are.
The
There's
current.
been a lot
Very
of,
worrisome.
it's very worrisome. Yes.
On occasion,
Yeah.
the courts will step in, but not often.
Not this. Yeah.
And I've got the Rachel, I found the Rachel Carson on PBS. It is on here. So if we can
Oh,
find a
great.
way.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did it for book club one time, Silent Spring. We did the book, and then I got the DVD because I thought people would be interested in seeing it. It was a hit. It was very good.
Do you know how long the film is?
Go ahead, Valerie, because I'm not.
I don't. I'm on the PBS app on my TV.
I can go look.
And like Dean and Penny, they said is the American Experience programming, and it is on PBS. And but we can. It's on the app, so I'm sure that we can show it somehow. We can.
That would be great. That'd be a
We'll
good
figure it
follow-up.
out.
Yeah.
Well, Sandy's got the video, and we can show it at the center. And I've been thinking about it in the beginning because
Here it is, and I'll just look.
Films, so we'll work this out. It'll be great.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was good.
Thank you, everybody,
Yes.
for coming.
Thank you,
Jill. So
Jill.
good to see you, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Enjoy, everybody. Get out. It's a
Okay.
beautiful day. Get some fresh
Okay,
air.
that's next.
Where?
Thank you, Valerie.
In your yard, Barbara. Take a walk.
Bye.
Are you going to Trader Joe's or where are you shopping? Victoria,
What, dear? What?
are you going to Trader Joe's still?